So, welcome to this week's Thinking Thursday. Two familiar faces, Peter Harnden and David Mitchell. And for the first time, we're tackling a subject that was inevitable that we needed to delve into. There are so many angles to it, and we're not going to cover any more than a fraction of it, however hard we try. And that's the whole business of welfare. Covers a multitude of sins and a multitude of unfair and unreasonable comment. The starting point I'd like to go with is with David Mitchell, who has made a bit of a reputation for being fearless in defending the industry. He's tackled many of the anti-organisations, he's called them out, where many others have hidden away and shied away. And David's got criticism, he's got criticism throughout the industry because he doesn't do what people want. But nobody has tried harder to defend this industry than David in recent weeks, as I think most of us will probably acknowledge. So, David, I'm not trying to embarrass you here, but it hasn't been an easy run for you, has it? And when we spoke previously, you've mentioned to me how life has been made difficult for you daring to question some of these anti-groups, their reasons and their motives.
Yeah, I think obviously anybody following social media over the last few weeks will have seen the situation around a certain organisation and threats made, shall I say, on Facebook, for instance. It doesn't really bother me, Floyd. As long as I keep asking them questions and calling them out on what they say, and as you stick to facts, there's pretty much nothing they can do. So the last couple of weeks, they've, threatened and done bits and bobs, but it ain't going to stop me from starting asking them questions on the information they're putting out about, the welfare of dogs and financial information.
And I'm going to say, what horrendous questions have you been asking?
I'll kind of take you through a small timeline. I basically questioned the financial information for the past 12 years, and they instantly turned around and threatened legal action. Then they said, we're going to contact your employer. We know where you live, this type of stuff, which doesn't bother me at all. I knew it was a load of rubbish anyways. The next thing they did was take a screenshot of my brother and I, put it on their Facebook page for all their followers to see, retweet, comment. And all I basically asked them was, where's your financial information for the past 12 years? Nothing untoward, no accusations, just simple question. And the next thing, yeah, as I say, it was retweeted. There's a lot of comments, but it was quite good to see that one of their followers then jumped in and said, is this really about the dogs? Is this about the animal welfare, or is this about the person? Is this about taking screenshots of people and putting them on the group and harassing, bullying people, terrorizing them, filling their inbox with messages, going on the LinkedIn pages, this type of stuff? Or is it actually about the welfare of dogs? When does it cross the line? And to be fair, a lot of their own supporters then jumped on and say, you're actually 100% right. It's not about the dogs. Clearly, it's about the person. The person has asked you a difficult question, and instead of giving them an answer, you've threatened them with legal action and then tried to take private pictures and put them on for everybody to comment. So it was interesting. A couple of weeks have gone by now, still heard nothing, which I don't expect to hear anything. And as I've said on social media a number of times, I would love for them to do something, because I would just turn to social media and say, let's do a Just Give In or whatever it is, and let's take them down. I'm not fussed at all.
Yeah, I've seen some other things that you've done where particular organisations in the south of England, I'm not even going to give the credit, I'm not going to get involved in any legal battles over it, but a particular organisation came out with some incredibly outlandish statements about some dogs, and you called them out as well, didn't you? What was the story there?
They put a picture on and some videos of a dog that was, you could see that it was injured, severely injured as well. It wasn't nice to see. And I simply asked them, could you give us the ear markings, any details you've got on the dog? And I would do my level best to contact, whether it was the GBGB or, island to find out how this has came about and how the dog came in your possession. It went on and on and on, Floyd, for probably a couple of weeks, and it was really, really, it grounded me down. I was getting replies saying, "Well, the Daily Mail are more interested than the governing bodies," and you just couldn't get the information out. And then it all kind of came to a head, sort of, about 2 weeks ago. They then put a post out on Twitter and said, since you keep on asking, because obviously I was asking them, and anybody that's seen the post, I was being very polite to them. I said, look, I don't want to see a dog in that condition. Nobody wants to see a dog in that condition. If that dog has came from the racing industry and came into your possession like that, then we need to work together to make sure this doesn't happen again. Once is too much,
Yeah.
And they said, right, well, since you're asking, we'll provide you with that information. A couple of weeks down the line, still nothing, still no information, still don't know the dog's name, couldn't tell you anything about the dog, couldn't tell you where it was injured. And it breaks you down after a while. You just think, are these, like I've just said before about, they're interested in nailing the person who's asking the difficult questions. Is it about the dogs? Is it about the animal welfare? Is it about the people who are asking the questions? And it always comes back to the people asking the questions. And if you ask questions about the bills, you never see a bill, you never see an invoice. It's just we've all seen the information. The dogs did this, the dogs did that, and then these fictional numbers are picked out: 4,000, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, and it plays on the public to put their hand in the pocket and pay towards this. Now, I'm not saying there isn't well-meaning welfare organisations out there that want to make change and want to improve the lives of animals, but a simple question: if it was me and I had a dog that was badly injured, and I said I need £10,000 to fix the injury, and then somebody said, "Well, I'll give you some money. Can you tell me how it happened?" Or can you just explain? The fact that you don't get any information back is just, you just ask yourself, do they actually want to improve? Do they want to change? Do they want to help dogs, or do they just want to try and nail people who ask the questions?
Dave, can I just jump in? I don't think it's about nailing the people who ask the questions. It's about the panned oats. By not giving that information and not being truthful, they can keep playing on people's passion, for these animals, for the genuine welfare people who are interested in the dog's welfare. They're playing on their money. As soon as they admit that actually that dog didn't come from racing or it's from somewhere else, then next minute the donations dry up. So they actually start attacking people like yourself for asking these difficult questions, what they don't want to answer, because they know actually that's their money going down the drain. And suddenly they get very anti towards you or anybody else who's going to ask them difficult questions, because they want you to go away. They don't want you to keep up, because actually they're funding people, their donators don't ask these questions because they just believe a lot of the lies. And like you say, if these are genuine welfare people, even if they don't like greyhound racing people, they would work with you. They would turn around and go, well, this is where it come from, this and that. And they know then we could do our side of the thing and help them to stop this from happening. And so the main beneficiaries are the dogs.
Yeah, and I think my concern, to be honest, Peter, is we live in this culture on social media, and this isn't just welfare. This runs right through social media, that people can go on social media, and whether we're talking about the welfare issue or other issues, it can be anything. People can go on social media and they can make accusations, and they don't provide any evidence. Now, I live in a world that if somebody's going to say something about myself or say something about welfare or whatever it is on social media, if somebody wants to say something about an individual or an organisation, you need to provide evidence to back up what you're claiming. If you're claiming that a dog has came into your care and injured from the ground racing industry, and you are asking for money or whatever it might be, you need to provide evidence to say, this is how it happened, this is the steps we're taking, this is this, and then everybody can work together. By not providing that evidence, the person who's then saying the information are just guilty of, slander, whatever you want to call it, disinformation. it's just spreading a rumor, and it hasn't got any basis without providing evidence.
But I had an issue when I took the position I took. People told me what sort of filth was going to be spoken and the lies and stuff what would come out. And some of the lies off some people I was surprised at. And I thought to myself, actually, I got on with some of these people, but as soon as I took the job, it was like they were just totally different people. And I'd suddenly become a different person because I took the job. And I was like, I can't believe some of this rubbish and dire rubbish what came out. And I actually inquired sometimes because I thought to myself, there must be something I can do legal about this. I thought people cannot tell these lies and say these certain things. And straight away, the solicitor and the legal side of things said to me, Peter, they won't have anything. You can go and take them to court, sue them. You'll be getting 50 pence a week or £1 a week. And then next minute, somebody else will say something. You'll have to go down the legal route, trying to then sue them. You might get £1 or 50 pence a week. He says you cannot. Going down that route of trying to legal to do people for slander, and unless you know, if it's like the Daily Mail where you see some of these superstars sue the Daily Mail and that, unless they've got something, you're wasting your time. They can tell what lies they want because you can never get to them because they've got nothing. Because these people have the money, what they've got is probably pittance, and you're just wasting your time. And that's how they get away with it.
I was having a brief chat with Floyd before we started this call, and I was kind of describing what I think the human psyche behind how people work, how people operate, and like I was saying to Floyd, if somebody is of the persuasion that they are concerned about animal welfare, and I said this tongue in cheek to Floyd, and I don't mean this, but say vegan or something like that, like the concern about animal welfare, it doesn't take a lot of information to then say to them, well, this dog has had this injury in the ground racing industry. It's all to do with betting. It's all to do with making money. Instantly, their mind says, right, that's it. And you ain't going to change their opinion. Now, all I've tried to do on social media is just ask questions, stick to the facts, not hang myself by making stories up, stick to the facts, ask questions. And then what generally happens is anybody that is true will just tell you the information. They've got no problem. They'll just say, this is this is that. Now, when they start taking your photos and start publishing them on groups and for people to hate on them, then it shows the individual's true intentions. It shows them for what they really are. And what they're really, and then everybody else sees that, their followers see that and think to themselves, well, actually, it's not about the animals, it's about the person, or it's about this, it's about that. And that is all I intend to do when I'm on social media. I don't intend to try and persuade some individuals that, this is this and that is that, because they're not going to believe us. But it's about showing the individuals for what they are.
Yeah.
One of the points I would make, and it's a point made by an author, Douglas Murray, who's someone I find very interesting, and he says, so many of these, I've mentioned this in a previous editor's chair, but so many of these organisations start out as worthy causes with worthy ideals, but by the time everybody's got their hands on the cash, there becomes a reason to keep the thing going. And they will tell their supporters anything that they need to hear, just to keep the cash rolling in. And we're not just dealing here with two bob petty criminals. We're dealing with major organisations that have millions and millions of pounds coming in, or millions and millions of dollars coming in. They need to keep those ticking over. There's pension funds involved, that there's MDs, that there's bonuses and all kinds of things coming along. And you look at the kind of money that some of these charities bring in, and the money that they pay their CEOs, long way into six figures for many of them. And of course, one of the things that comes out, and again, as we spoke earlier, is that once you do that, once you go down that route and the money starts to roll in, we've seen cases, I believe you've even had your hands on some evidence of people asking, supposedly people saving greyhounds, begging for horrendous pictures of dogs. They don't necessarily need to be greyhounds, or they look vaguely like a greyhound. The worse the better, because they know they're going to cash in. And I think there was a story, wasn't there, in one of the papers recently about how it's affected the meat market now in China, where at the meat market now, the people are making money for basically scamming decent people.
I've just got the article up here in the background, and I'll read the title to it, and I'll just give you a little bit of information about that. So the title was "Brits Manipulated into Buying Dogs from China to Save Them from Being Butchered," and I highlighted a comment here, and this was a lady who did a lot of research into this and looked into it and exposed, and there was somebody arrested on the back of this for doing it. Many people on social media who are so moved by dogs being butchered, especially well-known breeds they recognise, will naively contribute to this gruesome trade. The requests are almost always the same. Lone female rescuer needs £200 to save a life. This pulls on the heartstrings of people in the UK wanting to help but unable to travel to China. Now, how often do we see that message linked to greyhound racing with different organisations that we've discussed at length prior to this conversation? We see it week in, week out. There was one I noted down that asked for £16,000 in 24 hours. Got it? £16,000 in 24 hours. I'm not talking about £200 per dog. £16,000 in 24 hours, and they managed to achieve that. Now, it's worth noting, not one bill was ever shown. Nothing, no invoices, no way bills for any dogs, nothing. £16,000 was the figure, and that's what they raised. After they got the £16,000, no bills, nothing. So it could be 160,000, £16. It could be anything. It's just numbers that are picked out of thin air without the evidence to back up. Why do you need that money, and what's it going to be used on?
Yeah, very much so. I said some of these, I believe these criminal gangs in China would basically, unless you send money for this dog, it will go to the meat market. And I did a little bit of research actually, because I was talking to somebody else without a greyhound background, and they were saying, "Do you actually understand China?" And I'm, no, not really. We've all got this. Do you know that there's a plan that by the year 2024 there'll be 200 million pet dogs in China? 200 million, more than America. For these dogs, these terrible things, and nobody's decrying it or undermining it for someone like the meat market. It's a tiny fraction of what China is about. And I believe some of it's been, one of the articles I read said, one of the reasons that it came about was the Chinese policy on one child per family. And there's been this need to have somebody else to love or something else to love, because they could only have one child or couldn't have any children. And that's where pets have filled the void. The market in China for pet dogs is absolutely colossal, dwarfs anywhere else in the world, and continues to grow. And yet we are still spun out this story about the meat markets, which I went to Vietnam and spoke to people in Vietnam where they have a tradition of eating dog. And the feeling was, yeah, but that's kind of like what the peasants do and what our grandparents used to do. I'm not saying it still doesn't happen, but it isn't what we as a modern 21st century country even want to talk about. It's embarrassing, and it's humiliates us, and it makes us look bad on an international stage. And I gather that the Chinese government is taking exactly the same view. But it doesn't, the reality doesn't bring money in, does it?
The thing is, Floyd, this is what makes me laugh, right? Anti-welfare organisations generally use Ricky Gervais as the poster boy of animal welfare. Now, I've sent you a clipping out of a book written by an idiot abroad who actually talked about eating dog while I think he was in South Korea.
Carl
He ate dog.
Yeah.
And the producer of that show was Ricky Gervais. And we've talked about that. I think the more shocking thing from all of this is if you actually go to not companies house, if you go to the charities registry, commission, and you have a look at some of these charities. Now, the one that we know that operates in the UK that operates in China, I think they spent something in the region of £50,000 on buying dogs last year. Now, it's okay saving a dog, and thinking about the welfare of a dog and paying vet bills for dogs. But when you're actually buying dogs, that is creating a market for somebody to sell them. So if you were buying dogs in China or any other country, you were then creating a market. So if you pay someone, the person who's selling you it will just keep getting dogs in that condition and keep selling you dogs. If they've got a buyer, they'll keep doing it. Sell. That's how it works. You create a market. Now,
and
I think
if they know, Dave, the worse the condition, the more it's going to pull on your heartstrings. What they're actually doing is funding bad welfare because you're telling people the worse, the better. So the poor dogs might have been all right, but you forced them to be in that condition so the people can get money off you. Oh, it's a joke.
Yeah, it is terrible. It really is. And I think what we're going back to the start of this conversation when we said about these organisations turning their attention to myself a lot of the time because I ask questions. It doesn't take a rocket scientist or it doesn't take one of their donors to go on their websites. Just have a little look at what money they're getting and where they're spending it to ask the question. Where I've gave you X, Y, Z. Can you tell me where you're spending that? Provide me with an invoice. Provide me with some evidence. It never comes about, Peter. It never comes about. You don't get the racing name of greyhounds. You never get bills. You get nothing. Absolutely nothing.